Hi, welcome to day 20 of the 21-day self-transformation challenge, Finding Purpose. Today we're going to talk about intuition and more specifically, living intuitively. When I went to put this series together, I had ideas for topics and I listed them out, like the 21 topics that I wanted to talk about. And I didn't put a lot of thought into it. I thought, I'll come back to it later and organize them and reorganize them. And I didn't really end up having time to do that, so I just started making the videos following the loose outline that I had. And it was interesting because I had very few reworks. I had to shift things around just by a couple of days, and that's it. And so it's great that intuition ended up coming out last, because what I've found is, it's having gone through a lot of these processes and done a lot of clearing that's put me way more in touch with my own intuition. And, the putting the list together itself is a great example because, like I said, I just had these ideas in my head and I finally sat down, I'm going to put them out, 21 different ideas, and I'll do the order later without putting a lot of thought into it. And so what I did right there basically was, the key words being, didn't put a lot of thought into it, didn't think about it. What did I do? I just followed my intuition, and it was pretty much spot on. And that's what I'm talking about when I talk about living intuitively. It's making the decisions on a daily basis, even the smallest decisions, by listening to your body and listening to your intuition. And I talk about listening to your body, and I don't want to necessarily limit people to that. I believe, the body and everybody's body, the body never lies. The body never lies. When you can clear out all of the shit and all the fear and the emotional stuff that may be vibrating in the body and really listen to what the body's saying, it won't lie. It will never steer you wrong. But I want to kind of qualify that and say, for me, the body, because one of my strongest psychic or intuitive abilities is clairsentience, which is the feeling, the more physical feeling aspect of things. So for me, this is very much true. Now, if you have a really strong, say, clairvoyance, which is seeing, or clairaudience, which is hearing, it may look a little bit different for you, and I can't really specifically speak to that. And so I like I said, I'm going to go back to saying I know the body will never lie, but if you have one of those abilities that's stronger than the clairsentience, your intuition may work differently than what I'm talking about, and it would be a matter for you of sorting out along the kind of framework that I'm laying out here, sorting out when it's your intuition sending the pictures, or it's the sounds, or whatever it is that you're hearing. When is it the intuition and when is it the ego? Because what does intuition sound like or look like? It sounds like you, right? It's your intuition, so it's going to sound like you. Now, what does the ego sound like when the ego's talking or communicating with you? It's your ego. It sounds like you. So how do you tell the two apart? That is the tricky aspect. That's where it gets hard. And the thing of it is, it's a process typically of sorting out what is what. And like I said, part of that process is going through all the crap that we've been working on in the last couple weeks, getting into the shadow, integrating the shadow, so that the ego itself kind of doesn't have as big a hold and doesn't create so much havoc, because it's when you're in your head that you're really in ego. When you're in your thought process, when you're trying to control things, that's when you're in ego and you're not listening to your intuition. And a great example of this to me is when I'm in traffic. And I drive a lot, so being in traffic can be very frustrating for me because I don't have a lot of time necessarily to be one place to the other for my job. So when I'm in traffic, what I found is when I'm in my head, because when I'm in traffic, I will try to move to keep moving as best I can. I always like to be moving. And if I'm trying to control it and thinking if I do this and I do that, or I'm here, I'm there, usually I get pretty much nowhere or end up in the line that's not moving. On the other hand, when I am more relaxed and just not worrying so much about what I have to do or what is my next move, sometimes I'll get a hit. You need to move into the lane after this car. Move into the lane after the car, and that was the move. And I find that a lot. I do have a hard time getting into that space when I'm driving, but pretty much has never failed me when I've been in that space. And I know when I'm in that space because I'm not really thinking about anything, and the thought will just come in and I'll just do it. That's a great example of living intuitively, and it's a great example of trying to control the situation with my head as opposed to listening to what my body knows. The body always knows, and the body will somehow communicate it to me. It'll give me a sensation, it'll give me a picture. In this case, it was a more of a clairaudient thing, move into the lane. So that's a great example to me of the separating out of when you're in your head and when you're in your body, in your intuition, and really hearing it. And so you can apply that to daily living. In another example is some days I'll get a hit to grab something or bring something or do something, lock a door, unlock a door, depending on what the situation is. Grab a bottle of water. Okay, I'll grab. I don't always bring water. Grab a bottle of water, and it pretty much inevitably turns out that I needed that. Not too long ago, it was bring your checkbook. It just came to me, bring your checkbook. I'm like, okay, I don't ever use my checkbook anymore, but I'll bring my checkbook. I brought my checkbook and I needed my checkbook. Or I'll get a hit on something like bring your checkbook, and I don't bring my checkbook, and it's like, damn it, I needed my checkbook. So it becomes this process of learning, like in that situation where, what were you feeling and what did it look like when you heard that message, get your checkbook? Think back to that, because that's how you know what your intuition sounds and feels like. I mean, really, when you're in your true intuition, what is going on, and how does it come in? Because the process, the difference between ego coming in and intuition coming in, that is two different things, because ego is always going to be more of a mental and like a constricted emotional energy than the intuition, which is going to come from a more relaxed state of just not thinking and thoughts just coming in. This is why meditation is so great for enhancing the intuition. You're getting yourself into that relaxed state where thoughts are just flowing. You aren't controlling your thoughts. You aren't trying to do anything with your thoughts. They're just flowing. I have another example of some intuition of just to give examples of learning to really key on and see when, and be aware. That's the word I'm trying to get to. You're being aware of when you had an intuitive hit and what it looked like, what it felt like at the time. The other day I was driving around and I had a couple of visions of two different people in situations where something would go on. It was like a daydream type of thing, but I was just thinking about, in this situation, this, or in this situation, that. And both of those people I talked to later in the day, and they were spot on with what was going on with those people that day. And it was, it was interesting. This is kind of in the flow. It's like this is the new energy, or the new way of being, this new interconnectedness on a more psychic level. But what I like to do is go back and think about, okay, at the time that it happened, what was going on? What state was I in? What did I feel like? And what I've come to learn is that it always kind of feels and looks the same in what was going on with me at the time. It was more of a relaxed state. I wasn't mentally trying to do anything. I wasn't distracted. I was just kind of letting thoughts float. And then I have one more example of intuitive living that's kind of on a bigger level. Last November 2017, I got an email of someone whose work I've been following for years, and she was having a retreat in Hawaii, and my whole body said, you need to do this retreat. My whole body just was like, oh, wow. And normally in something like that, I'm going to think it out. I'm going to look at my finances. I'm going to do this and do that. And I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to listen to myself. And I just signed up for it and did it. And from that point on, my life changed significantly. I didn't even go to the retreat until May, but my whole life started to change from that decision on. And it's like, wow, that was a stepping stone. My body said, take it. I took it, and boom, everything started to change. And the same thing earlier at the beginning of the year, I had this intuitive hit to start doing something. And I'm like, oh, you got to be kidding me. What? Why would I do that? I mean, I haven't done that in years. And I just like, okay, fine, I'll just do it. I'll do it, fine. But because I just had that sense, and it was really in my body and an all over sense, every aspect of me was going, you need to do this, except for my mental brain was going, what the hell? No. So I did it. And again, same thing, huge, significant differences in my life. So that is just a couple of my own personal examples of really listening to intuition and following intuition. And it's a process of learning. Living intuitively is not something that we're taught. We're taught completely the opposite. We're taught to plan and think ahead and think and control, and which is kind of a travesty to me. If we learned to live intuitively, I think as our ancestors did, life and the world would be a much better, a much more peaceful place. But that's just my thoughts on that. But it is. We don't train ourselves to do it, or we're not trained to do it from youth, so we have to retrain ourselves to do it. And kind of that's what these whole 19 days really has kind of led up to, and that's why it's pretty awesome that by following my intuition kind of ended up at the very end of the whole process. So if you have any questions on that, I hope I've covered it enough and made it clear enough. And like I said in the very beginning, of course this process is going to look different for everyone because we all have slightly different gifts and abilities. These were some ideas or some framework for the way that I really have learned to live intuitively my way, and hopefully within the framework, for however it works for you, you can find your way, because following the intuitive leads is really the key to finding and living your purpose. And ultimately, this is the key to our inner peace and our most contented life. I hope everyone has a really fabulous day, and tomorrow is the last day. Oh, so that's sad. All right. I'll see you all tomorrow.